Hey there, dear listener. As you might remember, in the last episode, I explained how we would be broadening our scope in this third season of the podcast. One of the ways in which we'll be doing this is by guest-curated and produced miniseries alongside our own episodes. We'll have students, alumni, and professionals producing their own stories right here in this feed. The way this will work is that I will introduce them the first time we publish a new series, but after that, it'll stand on its own. You can figure this all out by just looking at the title of the show, right? And this episode is exactly that. A series about arts and science produced by Filip Studios, alumni of the Academy. But there's no need to explain this further because the Filip Studios podcast has its very own host, Sabine Winters, who will guide you through. So yeah, enjoy.
This is Filip Studio Podcast in collaboration with Artist Studium Generale, a podcast series dedicated to the potentials and pitfalls in art and science projects, with your host Sabine Winters.
We think that it's really important to amaze yourself about different processes, and especially in a world where there's a lot of technology going on and a lot of processes that are controlled. Wonder is very important to stay amazed about things around you.
Designers Roos Meerman and Tom Kortbeek use Wonderment as their superpower for their Filip Studios projects. So what can be the role of wonder and wonderment in art and science projects in general?
Yeah, I think the added value of especially then art is lies in this wonderment, amazement that art can give us, but also the process of making art can be very wonderful. Mm-hmm. And I think this added value is very important, but because it makes us able, for us as humans, to come up with ideas for questions that we don't know, that we have to answer in maybe 10, 20, 40, 50, 100 years. The big questions that we are going to be confronted with in the 21st century, we don't know them yet. So we have to stay in a mindset that we can be excited about things that we see, that we can wonder about how things are going on, and I think that's also really important. And we want to emphasize that with our studio.
That sounds wonderful. But how do you use Wonderment as a tool and turn it into a tangible project?
I think the answer is really simple, but the method can be quite difficult because you really have to stay open all the time. And that's the easy way of saying it, but the difficult thing is for doing it. Our society and we as humans are focused on controlling things, on making models of nature, making models of our society, making models of our bodies to understand it. And then in that way we also funnel ourselves into a straight way of thinking. So this is that, and then this happens, and then this will happen, and then I think at the end this is the outcome. Mm-hmm. That's all. Our processes are all based on this way of thinking. So it's really hard to break out of this linear way of thinking and to stay open to new input and don't be focused on the end goal. Okay. So also in our process of making an art piece, then in a way you're already creating an end goal. Yes. And then you have to realize this end goal, and it's really hard to stay open. So it's really easy answering it, but doing it is really hard.
And it's not that we're in our ateliers or studios and working on our own on a great, really big problem. We're searching for collaborations with scientists, for example, or other artists, and that makes it more easy to get inspired by what's important and what's important for them to think about, but also we get inspired to work with their processes and think with them. Yeah, for me, it always starts with a process on itself. So a given technique or a given phenomenon in science, for example. Mm-hmm. So for me, 3 of my projects started by looking at scientific installations. So cymatics, for example, how you can visualize frequencies by making an installation that exists of a metal plate with sand on it, for example. Mm-hmm. For me, it was kind of interesting how you can, by using scientific instruments, how you can collect things that are unreachable or that you cannot grab. For example, sound of frequencies, and that you can manipulate them as a human being. So that's where most of the time my project starts, by looking at these things and then start to experiment with them. I think it's very important to using the method of serendipity. So searching, not working to one end result, but be flexible and open for influences from outside. It's not always about the end result, and that's what education is about at the moment.
Wonder. Process. Wonder. Process. Wonder, process, art. Question. Wonder, process, art. Wonder, process, art. Open and go grab, sound, add. Wonder, process, art. Question. Wonder, process, art. Science. Wonder, process, art. Open and go grab, sound, add, plants. Wonder, process, art. Question. Wonder, process, art. Question. Wonder, process, art. Question.
Don't answer.
I think the process behind these works are always more interesting than the end results. But maybe, that's.
Well, I also think in the world of the performance art, where I come from, is that you're really focused on making an end result, a production where people can see, can visit, and not only subsidies, but also the fact that you pay for a ticket. You only pay for a ticket to see a performance, and not see something doing research, or probably you're not able to see it. You're not paying to someone doing research in his own studio, and that you don't see it. So I agree that it's the most based value on money is in the end result, in the performance, or in the piece that you're making. But I don't necessarily think that the true value of the arts is in the end result.
Mm-hmm.
And
no, not at all.
No.
Well, not at all. In some points, yes, but in the way we work, in the process is so rich, because you start with one idea, and then the idea of working with serendipity, of a tinkering process, you end up with maybe 20 ideas, and then you have to choose out of these 20 really nice processes, mm-hmm. or things that appear, shapes. You have to choose for one idea. That's the most difficult, I think, in a process. Time also, because sometimes, for example, with Tactile Orchestra, we started with this project in 2015.
14 already, and the end
14,
of 2014, the first idea.
Mm-hmm.
Of this started in 2014, and we're now in 2019. It takes time, and it takes time to evaluate the process, and to evaluate the steps, and to reach a point where you can say, okay,
and let it rest for a little bit.
Yeah. That's also very important. Yeah, and get the right connections, for example, to get it. It further. So
But I also most of the time tend to forget that this process takes time. So it's really also kind of frustrating that every week, every month, I think of myself that I have to come up with a new idea. But it's also better to take an older idea and bring this step by step forward. So you really have to talk to yourself and say to yourself, well, this has to take time, so it's no problem that it's not every week a new project.
An example of Wonderment turned into a project is by an orchestra. Bio-Orchestra is a collaboration project with the Department of Plant Physiology of the Wageningen University, exploring the capabilities of plants to make music. Based on the knowledge and methods of the Wageningen University, Tom Kortbeek is developing a plant orchestra. This interdisciplinary research has been conducted for most of 2017, in which the applicabilities of both art and science have been tested throughout the process.
It started just by a couple of years ago that there was a new in the Netherlands. The subsidies for big companies are granted in periods of 4 years. So this was a changing of a new subsidy period, and there was a big discussion about the symphonic orchestra here in the city. That the institute that granted subsidies forced this orchestra to be fused with another symphonic orchestra in the eastern part of our country. Of course, there was a big fight over that, and I was just thinking, well, it should be far more easy to keep an orchestra alive that is based on plants than keep an orchestra alive that is based on 60 humans. So it's far more cost efficient to keep plants. And that was just the first thought, and then we said maybe we should explore this thought, and maybe we could make an orchestra based out of plants. And we came in contact with Sander van der Krol, who is an associate professor at the Wageningen University with plant physiology. He studies plants and plant cells and plant hormones and genes. And he was also already a couple of years looking for a sound artist or a music artist to transform his plant data and his plant research into music, because he was really fond of classical symphonic music. And by Rose, actually, Sander and I came in contact, and we were looking for each other in a way. And so we started working, because we both had a very intrinsic way intrinsic motivation to get this project going.
Exploring, yes.
Yeah. So that's really you have two people who want something, yes. And then you start working. And in the end, you have an interactive installation where you create music out of plants. And I hope in the end of this year, this will transform into a performance where an orchestra plays the music that plants have composed. So for me, interdisciplinary cooperation is something different than multidisciplinary, where multidisciplinary is that someone is an artist and a scientist and maybe a technologist and whatever. And I think the power of interdisciplinary working is that everyone adds something else.
Yes.
And you're very aware of the things that you're adding. And you're also aware of the things that other people are adding. And then you can deepen out this role and really play from out your own perspectives. And then naturally you will find a balance, because you are confronted with two forces, an artistic one and a scientific one. And then you come with something, I hope, something new.
If you start, for example, the value as an artist or designer is that you make aesthetic choices, or you want to show something that gives you another view on a certain subject or a certain given phenomenon. So you have to choose. You have to make decisions to make it really understandable for the public. That's the other thing, because it's an artwork is really strong because it reaches you at a certain point. So it has to be very clear what you want to say. And for example, in a research that I did called conography, it's a drawing machine that makes sound visible. You can choose whatever color you want to choose, but in every shape you want to use, you think about size, what the machine will look, so you have to make decisions. And for example, I really like the work of Olafur Eliasson. He takes really small phenomenon, so water, for example, ripples in water or the sun, as a starting point for his work, and he really enlarges the feeling that he has by seeing nature. And this is also something that you can do as an artist or a designer. It doesn't have to be a societal problem, for example. But it's about looking different at the things that are around you.
I do think it's really important that especially also the artist students and we as artists think about the big questions that society is confronting today, and that we do have to work this out into art pieces where we can research this phenomena. But I also think it's not a good idea to come up with answers in those art pieces.
Yeah.
For example, Tactile Orchestra, for me, my part in this process was started also with the societal idea of participation.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, what is a participation society? How do we participate? So that was the starting point for making this art piece. And at the end, it became a big wall of fur, and if you touch it, then music will come out of it. So what I'm trying to say is that the power of starting point is that it's going to play a role in the process. So it started me thinking about it, talking with people about it, and then this art piece come out of it. But it's something different that you will make an art piece that says this is participatory society and you have to do it like this, because there are other ways to do that. Then maybe you build a website, do a flyer, make a flyer, do a marketing campaign, and so you don't have to misuse art for those things.
It's interesting that, with this example from Tactile Orchestra, this could be an outcome. It could have also been an outcome if we were asked by a scientific institution to make something that tells about participation society. So it's nice to be aware that this could be an outcome for scientific institutions, I think, because scientific institutions, what they expect to have as an outcome is maybe a poster or a nice visual about their subject, but this could also be an outcome.
So maybe we can conclude that the potential of art and science projects, as we heard by Tom and Roos, lies in the sharing of wonderment. And the added value for interdisciplinarity is then that each discipline can have the opportunity to leave the beaten paths and not giving in to a straight A to B process with an end result. In the next episode, we will listen to plant physiologist Sander van der Krol about BioOrchestra, the project he and Tom work together on, and how to give form to these kind of very specific art-science collaborations. And also, we will get an impression on plant music. That's music created by plants. Thanks for joining us on Filip Podcast. For more information, please visit the website at philipstudios.com or Artes Studium Generale. And while you're at it, if you have questions about the show, we appreciate your input. Get in touch at podcast@philipstudios.com. And if you like the music we have used in the show, you might want to check out Raad van Toezicht. This song is called Snake of their album De Raad. You can find them on Spotify and YouTube. And the awesome intermezzos are made by Lotte Bell. Be sure to tune in the next time for this podcast by Filip Studios in collaboration with Artes Studium Generale on art and science projects.